Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about some of the approaches that we use while we're fishing in Yellowstone country. These rivers are good size. You have a chance to get out in the water, wade flats, and fish to rising fish from multiple angles. We fish both upstream and downstream to fish all the time. Sometimes it's advantageous to fish downstream to a rising fish for the reason that we can feed the fish fly first rather than having the entire leader go over him before he sees the fly. Sometimes it's the only way to get a good drift, or the other option is to be directly below the fish and casting up over his head. In that case, he may push the tippet with his nose as he's eating the flies. So sometimes fishing downstream is not only appropriate but advantageous. So I'll get into upstream fishing and downstream fishing. There's an inherent difference between the two. Fishing upstream is generally a slack producing drift. If I throw upstream, my slack is coming back at me, and it's my job to retrieve the slack by stripping in the extra line at the speed that the current delivers it. In a downstream presentation, it's a slack demanding drift. It's a slack needing drift. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when I throw downstream, I'm going to land right on the edge of this current here, and now in order to keep my drift alive, I've got to feed slack into it. I'm just going to kind of feed that as long as I can to keep that drift alive. A lot of times that rising fish will be way down there. So I've started with a 20-foot cast, and I've allowed my fly to go over a fish that's 40 feet away or 45 feet away. One of the main issues that we see that people have when fishing downstream is they're not quick enough to get to feeding slack. So they've landed the fly kind of tight, and now we're trying to feed slack, and you may or may not be able to see, but my fly is moving and it's dragging, and I'm not keeping up with the amount of slack that's needed to present that fly with a drag-free drift. So I will incorporate a couple things that I think are useful for fishing downstream. One is a bounce cast, another is a pile cast, and another is a reach cast. And I'd like to demonstrate all three of those right now and just give you an idea of when each would be appropriate. The bounce cast I'll start with. And the bounce cast is really just, I'm going to turn my loop over with a little more line than is required to reach my target. I'm going to let it bounce back at me. You can see the slack lands here by my rod, which gives me time to catch up and feed a little extra slack. Now keep in mind, usually when I'm fishing to a rising fish, if I'm landing my fly up here to present to a fish down there, I don't expect it to get eaten right when it lands. So I don't mind landing with a little extra slack. I don't mind that to be just a little bit even sloppy here. Now I may not be able to respond to a fish that eats it right away, but in this targeted style of fishing, I know where I anticipate that fish to eat my fly, and it's right down about where I'm getting to now. So I paid out all that slack, but by giving myself a little slack to work with initially, I'm able to have a little bit more time to work out the dexterity of feeding line. Now, if I want my slack, say it's a little more of a complicated drift in near the bank there, and I need more of the slack to be in the leader than to be right here next to the fly rod, then I might turn around and do a pile cast. And the difference is the bounce cast is just a cast that turns over really parallel with the surface of the water. It turns over and you sort of shrug it back into place. A pile cast, I'm going to tilt my casting plane just a little bit up, and I'm going to turn the fly over at an upward angle and let that whole leader collapse. And what I'm hoping for is that the leader will end up in a ball. Now I'm going to come a little further back with my back cast, and I'm going to shoot up. And now that slack is mostly out there, right? And that's what I would do if I have a little bit more of an eddy current. And I just need to get a little bit of slack in that leader so that the fly can continue. The final that I'll touch on is a reach cast. And the reality is we use a reach cast combined with a bounce cast and a pile cast all the time. We use a reach cast all the time for two reasons. One is drift is really determined by the final inches of tippet to the fly. All of this line over here comes afterwards. I've got to feed that into a drift, but the actual drift that I'm looking to maintain is relying upon a dead drift of that fly and the correct angle of the tippet for the first 12 inches from the fly. If I cast to this slow water from this position and my leader lands at a downstream angle, That's going to be ultimately the limiting factor of my drift. That's what's going to end the drift. If I can land my leader upstream of the fly, then I can pay slack until it eventually comes below the fly and pulls it out. So understanding how to place your tippet is a really huge part of this. A reach cast, if I weren't to do anything, and I was just going to lay my line straight, you can see my line and tippet are about 35 degrees or so. Well, let's come off of 90, 70 degrees off of the 90. If I combine that with a reach cast, I can take that leader and place it almost 90 degrees back upstream there. And that one little play is supremely advantageous when you're fishing areas with a real high differential of fast water and slow water, like a slick, and the fast water on both sides of it. The other benefit of the reach cast, and this is maybe the less understood part, is even if executed poorly, the reach cast is advantageous to you as an angler. And what I would tell you is when we are fishing downstream, if I land everything tight, and now I only have this amount of distance to travel with my fly rod without paying any slack and I'm already dragging, just by doing a reach cast, even if I'm going to do it incorrect like I did here, now my rod tip is up there, and now I've just really doubled the amount of distance that my rod tip can travel. That makes my position more dynamic. Instead of standing here in the river, I can make my point of origin 9 feet upstream of me with my 9-foot fly rod, and I have 18 feet of travel where I can make my static position more dynamic, even without executing a perfect reach cast. So I want to show you what that looks like when I do that correctly. Now, almost straight back upstream, and now I'm going to combine a little feeding line. Geez, that fly is still just hovering there in a current that it came out of so much quicker when I didn't have any of that extra to feed into it. That's the reach cast combined with a little bit of a bounce cast. I'm going to do that one more time. So just pulled it way back with that little bounce, really extended my reach, got plenty of slack, feeding it out. Drift's going to go on forever. Surely, if a fish is down there, he'll eat my fly. And surely I'll miss him. Now, we'll try that with a pile cast. So now with a pile cast, I'm going to try to collapse the leader. And now I've gotten that nice big reach and I've dropped that in. I've been able to combine a reach cast with a pile cast or a parachute cast and kind of achieve the same sort of benefit that I was going for before. So I think that that's the lesson there. I hope that that's enough of a demonstration for you guys to pick up on a few helpful tips that will help you put your fly into the mouths of a few more big fish.